Hey there, everybody. Thank you for stopping by my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Leilani, and we are moving forward with our book, The Medium's Book by Allan Kardec. We are this close to finishing. We're almost done. It's so exciting. Now, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, this book is the second book in the series written by Allan Kardec. And we already read the first book. That's on my YouTube channel if you want to catch up. And the reason why we are reading this book now is because the whole purpose of this book club, if you will, is to expose the spiritist, spiritualist, espiritista, medium, psychic, whatever you want to call yourself, to this information, because this information is very foundational in your practice, right? So if you are someone who is trying to develop your mediumship skills, trying to connect with spirits, trying to understand spirits, these books are really some of the greatest books you can start off with to really get you a good, strong foundation. So that's the whole point of me reading these, so that you don't have to. And as far as catching up on all the previous chapters, don't feel that you have to leave right now. You can always hang around and listen to each chapter, even if you've missed a few. The wonderful thing about these books, I have to say, in the way that it's written, is that it tends to repeat itself. It tends to be very thorough. So you don't really feel like you're confused, at least not too much. And of course, we read for about a half hour to 45 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes we spend on questions and answers about the chapter, about spiritism as a whole, about mediumship as a whole. But again, don't be shy to ask questions throughout the live. I just won't be addressing them until the last 10 minutes, okay? So let's get to it. We left off the last time right smack in the middle of a chapter, because it was just so juicy. There was just so much to say. So just to refresh your memory, the title of the chapter that we left off on is entitled Meetings and Societies, and the subcategories are meetings in general, bona fide societies, subjects for study, and rivalry among societies. The subcategory that we left off on is bona fide societies. So let's get to it. Everything we have stated about meetings in general naturally applies to regularly constituted societies. Nevertheless, societies must struggle against a few special problems deriving from ties among their members. From the numerous requests we have received for information about their composition, we will sum up some of our explanations. Spiritism, which has only recently appeared on the scene, is diversely appreciated and too little understood in its essence by a large number of its followers. Ooh, I disappeared here for a second. Sorry about that. In order to offer a strong bond amongst its members that could give rise to an association. Such a bond cannot exist except among those who understand its moral objective and who completely apply themselves to it. No serious element of connection could exist among those who only see it through the more or less curious phenomenon. If such phenomenon were placed above principles, one simple disagreement on the right way to regard them could cause a schism. The same would not apply to those solely interested in its moral objective. However, because there are no two ways of seeing it, it is also a fact that wherever one finds such individuals, mutual trust always connects them with one another. Reciprocal benevolence is the rule among them and excludes any embarrassment resulting from sensitiveness, pride, triggered by the slightest contradiction, and self-centeredness, which demands everything for the person it dwells. A society in which such sentiments were shared were the members gathered together in order to learn from the spirits. And not only in the hope of seeing more or less interesting novelties or making their own opinions prevail, would not only be viable, but indissoluble as well. The difficulty involved in bringing several members together in a homogeneous manner leads us to state that in the interest of the studies and for the good of the cause itself, Spiritist society should aim at creating small groups instead of large associations. These groups corresponding with one another, visiting one another, and exchanging observations could soon form the nucleus of a large Spiritist family that would someday bring together all opinions, uniting men and women in the same sentiment of fraternity sealed by Christian charity. So as you can see, once again, he brings up Christian charity. So I've said this in very many videos. His doctrine is very much seeped with Christian ideals. So it's really important that if you, as a budding medium or psychic, or someone who is interested in becoming a spiritist and or a spiritista, it's important for you to, kind of get comfortable with ideas about Christianity, Christ, the Bible, the cross, the crucifix. All these symbols take a lot of importance within the spiritist community. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of substitutions and things that you can do, but when it comes to the doctrine, like, for example, the doctrine of faith, hope, and charity, those are Christian concepts, but spiritists abide by that as well, and that can't be substituted. They just are what they are. So it's important for you to make sure that you're comfortable with that before diving into wanting to be considered an espiritista or a spiritist. Now, we have already seen the importance of uniformity of sentiment for obtaining good results. This uniformity is naturally more difficult to achieve when a large number of persons are involved. In small groups where everyone knows one another, better there is more security when new members join. Silence and concentration become easier, and everything happens as if it were at home. Large gatherings do not allow that intimacy because of the variety of their members. They require special locals, monetary resources, an administrative body, which small groups can do without. The divergence of characters, ideas, and opinions is more defined, enabling troublesome spirits to sow discord more easily. The larger group, the harder it is to please everyone. All want projects carried out according to their own wishes and want preference to be given to subjects that most interest them. Some would even believe that the title of member gives them the right to impose their own points of view. Then there would be conflict, which is the cause of ill will. This would sooner or later lead to the disunion and afterwards disillusion, the fate of all societies under such conditions, whatever their purpose may be. Small groups are not subject to such problems, however. The disbanding of a large society would look like a failure for the spiritist cause, and its enemies would not hesitate to exploit that. The dissolution of a small group would pass unnoticed. If one disbands, 20 others will take its place, and 20 groups of 15 to 20 persons will obtain more and do more for the spread of spiritism than one assembly of 300 or 400. It may obviously be said that the members of a society acting, as we have stated, could not be true spiritists, since the first duty the doctrine imposes is charity and benevolence. This is perfectly correct, and this is why those who behave like that are spiritists more in name than in fact. They do not belong to the third category, but who could say that they could even be called spiritists at all? This is a fairly serious matter to ponder. Let us not forget the Spiritism has enemies who are interested in preventing its development and who despise its success. The most dangerous are not those who attack it openly, but those who act behind the scenes, those who caress it with one hand while stabbing it with the other. Sorry. These maleficent beings infiltrate everywhere. They can do evil, and knowing that there is strength in unity, they try to destroy it by sowing discord. Who will thus say that those who cause trouble and discord in meetings are not adversarial agents interested in disorder? They are certainly neither true nor good spiritists. They will never do any good, but can cause much evil. We know that it is much easier for them to infiltrate large societies than small groups, where everybody knows one another. Thanks to secret maneuvers that go by unnoticed, they sow doubt, distrust, and disaffection. Under the hypocritical appearance of interest for the cause, they criticize everything and form intimate and exclusive groups that soon break up the harmony of the whole, and that is what they want. When dealing with such individuals, it is useless to appeal to the sentiments of charity and fraternity. It would fall on deaf ears because their objective is precisely the destruction of such sentiments, which are the biggest obstacle to their maneuvers. This situation, which is harmful to all societies, is even more so to the Spiritist societies. For if it does not lead to an outright rupture, it will cause concerns that are incompatible with the concentration and attention needed to do these sessions, right? If a meeting is going badly, they will ask, don't sensible and well intentioned individuals have the right to criticize? And if they ignore the problems without saying anything, aren't they approving it through their silence? Of course, they have such a right. It is even a duty. But if their intentions are truly good, they will issue their warning appropriately and kindly, and will do so openly without any subterfuge. If they are not listened to, they will withdraw, because it is inconceivable that anyone who is not acting with ulterior motives would persist in remaining in a society whose orientation was not appropriate for them. We can thus establish in principle that anyone in a spiritist meeting who causes disorder or disharmony, either obstinately or secretly, through any means, is an adversarial agent, or at least an evil spirit who must be gotten rid of as soon as possible. Nonetheless, the very commitment which links the members of a meeting together creates obstacles to doing so, which is why it is proper to avoid dissoluble commitments. Moral individuals always connect with one another in an appropriate way, whereas bad intentioned ones always do it to excess. So what he's saying here, and I think it's really important to make a note of this, is that when these meetings take place, number one, it's important to have smaller versus larger, because people know each other better, it's more intimate, and it's easier to spot people who are trying to, cause mischief. But what he's saying is, it is okay to question. Like, it is okay to, bring up some concerns during these meetings, bring up doubts, et cetera, et cetera. It is in the way that you do that. If you are, aggressive about it, if you do it with a taste of disdain, if you're doing it to sort of cause some upheaval within the group, then that is a problem. So, he's not saying don't question. He's not saying, don't, have doubt and seek, comfort for that. What he is saying is, don't go in there and act a fool and try and rally people into this idea that spiritism is, not working, and that, there's no leadership, whatever, because that is what is considered taboo, right? Now, besides notoriously malevolent persons who infiltrate meetings, there are also those who, because of their very temperament, bring trouble wherever they go. Thus, too much care cannot be taken in admitting new members. The most harmful in this case are those who are ignorant about the subject, or even those who are disbelievers. Conviction can only be acquired through experience, and there are well-intentioned persons who want to learn. Rather, those who should most particularly be cautioned against are persons given to preconceived ideas, the theoretical disbelievers who question everything, even the obvious, and the proud who pretend to be privileged with the truth and always try to impose their opinions while disdaining whoever does not think as they do. Do not be fooled by their pretended desire to learn. You will encounter many who would feel displeased if they were obligated to agree that they had been wrong. And above all, guard yourselves against those inspired talkers who always want the last word, those who only like to argue. They are both a waste of time and are of no use, even to themselves. Spirits do not like idle words. Period. I don't even think I need to elaborate on that, right? Now, in the light of the need to avoid every cause of trouble and distraction, when a spiritist society is organized, it should place all of its attention on establishing appropriate measures to keep troublemakers from doing any harm and to facilitate their leaving by any means possible. Smaller groups need very simple disciplinary rules for determining the order of their sessions. Regularly constituted societies require a more complete organization, and the best would be the least complicated system. Either type would be able to derive what is applicable or necessary from the regulations of the Parisian Society for Spiritist Studies, which we present below. All right, because the Parisian, Spiritist Center was one of the first, out there, one of the bigger ones out there. Small or large societies and all meetings, no matter how important they are, must struggle against a further problem. Troublemakers are not only found amongst their members, but also in the invisible world. And just as there are protector spirits for institutions, cities, and nations, maleficent spirits also connect to groups and individuals. First, they connect with the weakest and most accessible, trying to transform them into their instruments and gradually involving everybody for their malignant joy is as great as the number of those they have subjugated. And thus, every time a group member has fallen into their trap, it means that there is an enemy about, a wolf in the fold, and great caution must be taken because it is quite probable that it will increase its attempts. If such a member is not discouraged through strong resistance, obsession will spread like a contagion, which will appear among the mediums through a disturbance of their mediumship and among the others through mutual hostility, moral perversion, and destruction of harmony. So it's really important to understand what he's saying here. So when you have people in your group, whether it's a large group or a small group, but when you have people in your group who are in there solely for the purpose of causing problems, they end up actually attracting like spirits, just like them, who come in and also cause problems. And they do this by picking out the weakest medium in the group and sort of latching onto them, causing doubt, fear, pride, all these issues that will then kind of leak out to all the other mediums within the group eventually. And one of the telltale signs of this is that your mediumship skills, your mediumistic abilities, your psychic skills get deeply affected. They become fuzzied and, not accurate. And this is how you know something is out of whack. Okay. Since the most powerful antidote against this poison is charity, it is what they try hardest to stifle. Thus, groups must not wait until the evil becomes incurable before applying the remedy. In fact, they must not even wait for the first symptoms, for it is especially necessary to prevent them from appearing in the first place. There are two effective ways to do this if done correctly: heartfelt prayer and the attentive study of the smallest symptoms that reveal the presence of deceptive spirits. The former attracts good spirits who zealously assist only those who help them through their trust in God, and the later shows evil spirits that they are dealing with persons who are sufficiently enlightened and sensible enough not to allow themselves to be deceived. If members of the group fall under the influence of obsessions, all efforts should be geared toward opening their eyes from the moment of the first indications, before the evil grows worse, in order to lead them to understanding that they have been deceived and to instill in them the desire to help those who are trying to free them. The influence of the surrounding derives from the nature of the spirits and the way in which they act upon human beings. From this influence, we can deduce for ourselves the most favorable conditions for a society that aspires to attracting the sympathy of good spirits and for obtaining worthwhile communications and avoiding bad ones. These conditions depend entirely on the moral character of the participants and may be summed up as follows: perfect commonality of ideas and sentiments, mutual benevolence among the members, rejection of every sentiment contrary to true Christian charity, a single desire to learn and improve through good spirits, teachings, and the taking advantage of their counsels. Whoever is convinced that highly evolved spirits manifest for the purpose of enabling us to progress and not simply to please us will understand that they must avoid those who limit themselves to admiring their style without profiting from their words, and who are only attracted to sessions due to the greater or lesser interest they offer according to their individual tastes. Avoidance of anything in communicating with spirits is intended solely for satisfying one's curiosity. Respectful concentration and silence during conversations with spirits, association of all participants through thought when evoking spirits, and harmony amongst all mediums, rejecting any sentiment of pride, vanity, and superiority while supporting the sole desire to make themselves useful. Hopefully you got that. Hopefully that made sense. Are these conditions too difficult to fulfill that no one will be able to meet them? We do not think so. Instead, we hope that truly serious groups like those that already exist in various places will multiply, and we do not hesitate to state that Spiritism owes its broadest growth to them. By uniting serious and conscientious men and women, they will impose silence on our critics, and the purer their intentions, the more they will be respected, even by their adversaries. When mockery attacks what is truly good, it fails to elicit laughter and instead becomes despicable. Among groups of this type, ties of true sympathy will be formed, along with mutual solidarity through the very force of the circumstances, thereby contributing to the overall progress of Spiritism. It would be wrong to suppose that meetings, especially dedicated to the physical manifestations, are exempt from this fraternal harmony and the requirement of seriousness. Even if they do not require such strict conditions, it does not mean they can be frivolously held and observed with impunity. It would also be wrong to think that the occurrence of the participants is unimportant during such sessions. Proof to the contrary is, in fact, that frequently the manifestations of this kind, even when produced by well-gifted mediums, cannot be obtained in certain surroundings. Contrary influences also act upon these manifestations, and it is certain that such influences result from differences in or hostility of the participants' sentiments, which neutralize the spirit's efforts. Physical manifestations, as we have stated, are very useful. They open up a vast field to the observers because an entirely new order of strange phenomenon unfolds in front of them, the consequences of which are incalculable. Therefore, meetings can have a serious purpose in being occupied with these phenomenon, but they will not attain their objective as a means of study or proof for strengthening convictions if such meetings are not held under favorable conditions. The participants' faith is not the first condition. Rather, the first condition is their desire to be enlightened without ulterior motives or the preconceived thought to reject everything outright, even the evidence. The second condition is a reduced number of participants in order to avoid heterogeneity. Even though physical manifestations are usually produced by little evolved spirits, it does not mean that their purpose is any less providential. Good spirits supervise them whenever a useful result may be realized. We are now on the subcategory of subjects for study. So again, we're in the whole category of spiritual meetings and spiritual sessions among spiritists, the things that we do, the rules, how many, all that. So right now they're going to be talking about some of the things that spiritist groups can study together. Evocations of relatives and friends are certain famous persons in order to compare their post-death opinions with those they held while alive frequently run into difficulties when the conversation deteriorates into banalities and futilities. Many persons believe that the Spirit's book has exhausted all moral and philosophical questions, and that is incorrect. Which is why it may be useful to point out the source that may lead to new and unlimited study themes. If evoking illustrious individuals and highly evolved spirits is very useful because of the teachings they can provide, then ordinary spirits are no less important, even though they cannot resolve problems of a large scope. They themselves reveal their low position in the hierarchy, and the less the distance that separates them from us, the more we realize that their situation is analogous to our own, not to mention the fact that they frequently offer us characteristic traits of great interest, as we have explained in number 281 in dealing with the usefulness of private evocations. It is thus an inexhaustible source of observations, even if we limit ourselves to evoking spirits who, in their present life, offer us some particularly involving the type of death they suffered, their age, their good or evil qualities, their happy or disgraceful position while on earth, their habits, their mental states, etc. The field of study broadens with high-order spirits, because psychological questions which have their own limit, we can ask them an infinite number of moral questions about all life situations and the best behavior for this or the circumstance, our mutual duties, etc. The worth of the instruction we receive concerning any moral, historical, philosophical, or scientific subject depends entirely on the state of the spirit addressed. It is our responsibility to judge it and to be discerning. That's a word that we say a lot, but not many people really emphasize this as much as spiritists do. Besides evocations per se, spontaneous communications offer a large number of study topics. In such cases, we only have to wait for the spirits themselves to bring up their chosen subject. In such circumstances, several mediums can work simultaneously. Sometimes we can call to a particular spirit, but normally we must wait for those who want to come, and they often do so in an unforeseen manner. These communications can then provide a huge number of study issues, whose themes have been prepared beforehand. They must be cautiously discussed in order to analyze all the ideas they present to see if they bear any stamp of truthfulness, and such a thorough examination is the best guarantee against the interference of deceptive spirits, as we have said. For this reason, communications received outside the meeting should be brought to group meetings so that everyone may scrutinize them and benefit from them. And that's another important one, actually. I'm glad he brought this up. So, whenever you're in a misa or a spiritist session, we have this little saying, kind of like the Vegas saying, whatever happens in a misa stays in a misa. However, when you have communications with spirits outside of a misa on your own, we do encourage that you bring that to the next meeting so that we can discuss it and help you interpret it and help you understand what you're getting. It's not to say that you're not allowed to have your own interactions with spirits and your own personal messages, you definitely can. It's more so about if you're unsure about something, or if you feel like the message is relevant to a larger scale than just you, etc. Thus, we obviously have an inestimable source of highly valuable and instructive elements. Activities for each mediumistic meeting may be arranged as follows. So now here's the activities as it is, right? Happy new moon to you. A reading of spirits communications received during the previous mediumistic meetings after they have been reviewed and revised. Various reports, correspondences, reading of communications received outside the mediumistic meetings, reports on facts of interest to Spiritism. Number 3, study materials, spontaneous dictations, various issues and moral problems proposed to spirits, evocations, etc. And lastly, examinations, which are critical and analytical examinations of the various communications, discussions about various problems of the spirit science. So these are just some activities that you could do during a session. Okay? Now, groups that are just starting out are often faced with a lack of mediums. Mediums are certainly essential elements for spiritist meetings, but they are not indispensable, and it would be incorrect to suppose that there is nothing that can be done without them. Obviously, mediums are necessary for a meeting intended to conduct experiments, just as musicians are required for a concert, but when the purpose is serious study, there are many useful and profitable issues that group members may address by themselves. And moreover, groups that depend on mediums can accidentally lose them, and it would be a shame to believe that there was therefore nothing more to do except disband. Spirits themselves can, for certain periods, lead groups into the situation in order to teach them to get along without mediums. We might add that this may even be necessary so that the group profits more from the teachings, allowing it to dictate a certain amount of time to meditate on them, etc. Scientific societies do not always have instruments required for observation available to them, and yet that does not mean they have nothing to discuss. In the absence of poets and speakers, literary societies read and discuss the works of ancient and modern authors, while religious societies encourage meditation upon the scriptures. Spiritist societies should do the same, and it will be to their great advantage to promote conferences where participants read and discuss everything involving Spiritism, both pros and cons. Such a discussion, in which all participants make a contribution from their own reflections, can result in rays of light that would otherwise go unnoticed in private readings. Alongside special works, newspapers also contribute facts, news, articles, and reports on the virtues and vices that give rise to serious moral problems, whose solution only Spiritism can provide. This is also a way to show that it is connected to all aspects of societal life. We would maintain that a spiritist society that organizes its work in this sense, arming itself with the necessary materials, will not have to wait very long for direct spirit communication. And that is why we have called attention to truly serious groups at this point. Groups that most ardently desire to learn rather than to try to find a pastime. Okay, I really hope you integrated that, because that is so important, and that's really what my purpose is as an educator. A lot of people have stated to me that they have a problem. A lot of people in the spiritist community have stated to me that they have a problem that I'm teaching the spiritual sciences and I'm having misas and spiritual groups online discussing all of these things, and having these sessions online. And my reaction to that is, well, what do you think we're doing? And usually the thought immediately goes to mounting spirits and doing healings and removing evil spirits and doing all this stuff. And I said, And I always respond with, well, when do you ever study? Like, when do you ever sit back and contemplate the spirits, commune with the spirits from an educational standpoint, not just from, and I don't want to say theatrical, but in some cases it's very theatrical, to watch these events occur every single time. It's like people need healing every single time. There's an evil spirit in a group every single time. Someone gets mounted every single time. Really? 100% of the time? So there's no downtime at all. There's no moment where you contemplate on the scriptures and the doctrines of spiritism. There's no moment where you guys have healthy, spirited debates about some of the concepts in spiritism and some of the sciences that we adhere to. No. And that is where I come in, and my groups are all about learning the science of spiritism, learning our technologies, learning the skill sets and the foundational works, so that when you embark on the next steps of becoming a medium, you can do so with a strong educational foundation and a strong toolbox. My groups, you don't even have to be a medium or a psychic to be a part of them. You're just there to learn. And that's really important. It's for the advanced practitioner and the beginner. Anyway, enough about me. Let's keep it moving. So now we're on the subcategory of rivalries among society. So this is where all the drama comes in, right? The drama and all the juice. Here we go. Now, each group that deals exclusively with intelligent communications and each group dedicated to physical manifestations has its own mission. However, neither type would be in harmony with the true spirit of spiritism if they were to regard each other as rivals. The one who cast the first stone would simply prove that it was dominated by evil influences. And although approaches may differ, all must concur in the common objective, which is research and the spreading of the truth. Any antagonism, which is actually nothing more than excited pride, would supply weapons to detractors and would therefore harm the cause such groups mean to defend. These last considerations apply equally to all groups that may differ on certain doctrine points. As we have stated in the chapter of contradictions, these differences are most of the time based on side issues or even upon simple words, and hence it would be puerile to fragment a group to form another just because members do not think exactly the same. It would be even worse if different groups or societies in the same city mutually regarded one another with jealousy. We know that jealousy between individuals who compete with each other can cause reciprocal physical harm. But when they are in no speculation, jealousy is nothing more than a trivial rivalry provoked by self-importance. Since it is impossible for a society to bring all adherents together in one place, those who truly want to spread the truth, who have an exclusive moral objective, should be very pleased at the appearance of new groups, and if there is any competition between them, it should only be geared towards excelling in the area of the good. Those who claim to be in exclusive possession of the truth will have to prove it in light of this motto: love and charity. For this is the motto of all true spiritists. Do they pride themselves on the superiority of the spirits who assist them? Let them prove it by the superiority of the teachings they receive and by practicing them. This is an infallible criterion to distinguish those who are on the best path. Some spirits, who are more presumptuous than logical, sometimes try to impose strange and impractical systems under the prestige of the venerable names they adorn themselves with. Common sense makes quick work of these utopias, however, but in the meantime, they can sow doubt and uncertainty among members, and this often causes momentary disagreement. Besides the means that we have spelled out for evaluating such systems, there is another criterion that can provide an exact measure of their worth: the number of followers that they recruit. Reason says that the system most accepted by the masses should be closer to the truth than the one rejected by the majority, who see their members disappear. Thus, we can be sure that when spirits reject the examination of their own teachings, it is because they know how weak they are. If Spiritism is to transform humankind, as has been averred, it can only do so by improving the masses, which will happen only gradually, little by little, as individuals themselves improve. What is good is to believe in the existence of spirits if such belief does not make one better, kinder, and more accepting of one's fellow beings, and humbler and more patient in adversity. What good would it do to those who are greedy to be the spiritists if they continue to be greedy, to the proud if they continue to be full of themselves, and to the envious if they remain jealous? Thus, everyone could believe in the manifestations, yet humankind could remain at a standstill, as we have seen. This is not how God intends it, however. It is toward a providential purpose that all serious spiritist societies should tend, grouping together all those who have the same sentiments. Then there will be unity, sympathy, and fraternity among them, rather than any vain and childish antagonism provoked by self-centeredness. There will be more good deeds than mere words. Then they will be strong and powerful because they are supported on an unshakable foundation, the good of all. Then they will be respected and will silence all mockers because they will speak in the name of the evangelical morality respected by all. This is the course along which we have endeavored to take Spiritism. The flag we have raised on high is that of Christian and humanitarian Spiritism, around which we are happy to see so many people gathered on all points of the earth, because they understand that the anchor of salvation, the safeguard of public order, the sign of a new era for humankind is to be found there. We invite all Spiritist societies to participate in this great work. From one end of the world to another, may they extend the hand of fraternity, and thereby they shall snare evil in the laces of an inextricable web. Oh man, that is it. The rest of it is actually the regulations of the Parisian Society for Spiritists. So this is the regulations from the society that he is a part of over in France. We could potentially go over that if you want to. And then the chapter after that is called Dissertation by Spirits. So these are actual quotes from the spirits themselves concerning, whatever. And he has quoted spirits such as Joan of Arc, Saint Benedict, some famous authors like Chaucer. Let's see, who else has he quoted? Pascal, etc. So, I personally feel like those little tidbits at the end are something that you can read on your own. I don't think that's necessary for me to read. So, with that said, we have completed the Medium's book. This big, fat, chunky thing. We did it. We finally did it. So I have to say it was a pleasure doing this with you guys. It really is. I definitely want your feedback in terms of what our next book is going to be. However, I'm thinking to read some of the doctrines of Chico Xavier, who is a Brazilian spiritist who has a huge influence on the beginnings of Spiritism, especially in the Western Hemisphere, and parts of South America, the Caribbean, I would love to, get his side of the story, if you will, right? Now the podium is open for questions with regards to what we just read and mediumship in general, or even just the whole book. I mean, there was a lot covered in here. So, we have a few minutes. Let's talk about it. Congratulations to the Facebook user who helped someone, who helped one of their clients who was having suicidal ideation. I'm so glad that the information that you were able to provide them has provided healing and had lifted them out of that space. It's so very important. When we read for people, you know, it is very much like a therapeutic session. And a lot of times people come to us for readings and they really just want to vent. They don't really care what you have to say. They kind of just need someone to just listen to them and kind of drop a few nuggets of wisdom here and there. So it's really important, again, just like in the spiritist doctrines and the medium doctrines and all that, to really be a very learned person. Learn psychology, learn sociology, learn all of the different things that can help you become a better reader for your clients and a better healer for your clients. And when you don't know something, especially when you're dealing with people who are experiencing severe mental health issues and suicidal ideation, it is imperative for you to be honest with yourself and to be honest with them and say, I am not qualified to help you with this at this time, but I do have a list of recommendations. And find yourself community members, create a list for yourself of affiliates. Have the suicide hotline phone number nearby. Have the wellness check-in by the police department phone number nearby. Have the social workers phone numbers nearby. And refer people. It's part of our job, and there's no pride in that. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a reader or any less of a medium. It means that you are conscious of how impactful your words are, and that your words, if misconstrued or if taken the wrong way, especially from someone with mental health issues who might be not in the right state to hear you in the right way, could cause someone to do something very dangerous. And I would hate for anyone who does professional readings for a living to get caught up in that. That would be absolutely awful, But I'm so glad that it did work out for you. I'm so glad that you had the right information for that person. So good job. Great for you. Any questions so far? How are we feeling? Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So once again, thank you all so much for joining me tonight on my channel, The Magical Solution. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Stop by my website, themagicalsolution.com, to sign up for my classes, especially if you're interested in a psychic development, medium mystic development, and spiritist group development. Or if you're just interested in a reading. Make sure you stop by my Facebook groups and join those as well. There are a lot of amazing people in those groups who are very, very intelligent, who have years and years of experience under their belt, who would be glad to answer any questions that you might have. My Facebook groups are safe spaces. I'm constantly monitoring them, and I have people in that group that constantly monitor them as well. So, you know, I would love to see you. And once again, thank you so much. So join me next Thursday, and we will pick up a new book for our development. And I'm so excited to share it with you. This is how we grow, you guys. Have a good night.